I've met a lot of people throughout this squat everyday journey now that's almost reached 2 years. I've met a lot of people predominantly in this kind of virtual world, if you will, in this world where it's online. I don't really know faces, I don't really know people, but at the same time, I know people. We've exchanged a lot of messages. I've learned lots of different things about a lot of you guys. A lot of you guys continue to comment and continue to have conversations with me, and so 2 years is a long time, and some of you guys have been here since basically day one. So I feel like I know a lot of you guys and a lot of your philosophies and your views and perspectives. And now the channel is the size that I've never kind of imagined, and almost every day I meet new people. New people find this journey of mine. And because it's so extreme, because it's so left field, lots of questions pop up, and I find myself answering a lot of these same questions. And whether you believe it or not, I don't find it tiring, because these people are new. It's tiring to me if the same person is asking the same questions, and it's like, we've discussed this. So I find myself explaining why I squat every day, why my knees are not broken, why I'm not in a wheelchair, why every single disc in my back hasn't bulged and blown up, how I'm not in pain, and all these type of frequently asked questions. I'm always kind of answering those. A lot of you guys have trained quite a long time, and you've got your own perspectives and your own history and your own understanding of how things should be done. And a lot of the discussions are, why do you do this to yourself? The literature says it's not the most optimal way. This is the most optimal way. And, then I kind of go on the tangent of, well, I don't really believe what's written most of the time. I go on anecdote mostly. I go on people's experiences mostly, rather than what people in lab coats write about people who have actually done these things. So I would have loved to meet Ivan Abijev, the people underneath him, people who have kind of grown up in the Bulgarian system, and ask the real questions off the web. So there's no publication of some of these maybe not so popular opinions. I would have loved to kind of meet these people. But for me, trying to kind of explain my perspective, why I do this, it can be a little bit tricky. And a lot of the statements I hear are, man, you're crazy. I don't know how you put up with the pain. I don't know how you have so much dedication. I don't have an understanding why you are wired up like this. And so then automatically my brain kind of goes into that deeper gear of thinking, of trying to explain to somebody who I am as an individual, and to kind of explain how I got to this point, and then maybe you will understand why I am the way I am. I didn't have a normal childhood. I just didn't. I don't even know what a normal childhood is in the grand scheme of things. Maybe in the Western world, there is a norm of what we expect children to kind of grow up, with what sort of lifestyle. I was born in Croatia in 1989. 2 years later, a civil war broke out in Yugoslavia, which Croatia was part of at the time. We fled our home in Croatia because this was in 1993. Because we were Serbians living in Croatia. Now, all of this stuff I didn't understand back then when I was a kid. I was like 3-4 years old when all this mess kind of happened. We lived in Croatia. We had Croatian friends. Our families married Croatian people. There was no trouble. All of a sudden, there's arguments being had with all these powerful people that we've never freaking met. And it was decided that we can no longer live there. So off we go. We flee to Serbia. For the following 5-6 years, we are displaced. We are moving, seems like a couple of times a year throughout Serbia and Kosovo and all these different places, trying to find a new life, find a new home, find new jobs for my parents. They were trying to kind of take care of us. And we were kids, me and my brother. We were kids, and I had very, very poor understanding of what the hell was happening, other than I have to make new friends all the time. I have to see new schools all the time. I hear from early on, this family member's died, this member's killed, this one's. So that was kind of my life. Very unrest type of nature of childhood. And it all kind of normalized in 1998 when we came to Australia as refugees. Once again, new surrounding, new school, new culture, new faces, all that sort of stuff. So for the first 10 years of my life, almost 10 years, first 9 years of my life, it was turbulence. I didn't know why all of this happened. I had so many questions and I didn't have the capacity as a 10-year-old to understand some of these complex things. And to be honest, I don't think my parents had the capacity to understand some of these complex political issues, religious issues, all these macro issues that to this day, even as a 32-year-old man and done lots of reading from both sides, East and West, and all these perspectives, I still don't understand why things happened the way they happened and who benefited from all this mess and murder and blood and guts. And I always knew that I wasn't that. I wasn't hateful towards anybody. Right now, my best friend is Bosnian, okay, which is another, I guess, state of the old Yugoslavia. He's Muslim. He grew up as a Muslim. I grew up as an Orthodox Christian. Yet I love this guy to bits. If I believed some of this philosophy, some of these political stands that people, our politicians, led us to believe, I should be far, far away from this guy. But he feels the same way. He doesn't understand why the mess is. He doesn't understand why the political strife happened and why all of a sudden my neighbor, or my parents' neighbors, our neighbors, who we shared everything with, went to parties, went to birthdays, went to weddings, funerals, for many, many years, while all of a sudden we need to go on opposite sides and kill each other. I don't hate that guy. Why do I need to go kill him? So as a 32-year-old man, looking back now, I can kind of start to put some of these pictures together why I think the way I think. And so when I get some of these comments, or like, you're working too hard, or how do you do this, all the stuff, you need to understand that I come from a different type of world. I just grew up in a different world, surrounded by unrest, suffering, death, all that kind of stuff, which is one of the reasons why I chose the career that I chose. I wanted to stay the hell away from, exploiting people, politics, all that stuff. And I just wanted to go into a business where I just help people, no matter who they are, what religion they are, what political allegiances they have. I just wanted to help people for what they were. I see goodness in people. So nursing in itself, on top of that history, the first 10 years of my life, now it's been the second, or the last third of my life, so I'm 32, I've kind of been in nursing. And nursing has taught me lots and lots of different stuff, and I've spoken about this on the channel, and how you kind of get exposed to some of these things and how you walk away a different human being. You can't go through a childhood that I've been through and not be affected by it, whether it be bad or good, but your perspective on the situation, on the world, on life, what this whole thing is about changes. I didn't think this was possible for us as a family. I didn't think, I remember one of the earliest thoughts of me, I remember thinking to myself as an 8 or 9 year old, 7 years old, legit, I remember this thought. I thought to myself, women have to give birth. That's kind of one of the hardest things they have to do in life. This is a 7, 8 year old kid, right? That's very difficult for women to kind of go through pregnancy and give birth. It's like one of the hardest things to do for a woman. And on the same kind of line of thinking, I thought for a man needs to go to war, needs to kill, and potentially needs to die early. Those were the things that I kind of thought a man did and a woman did in terms of the hardest things that we as people need to do. That's an 8 or 7 year old brain thinking, I'm going to have to go to war one day, pick up a gun and kill people and do this sort of stuff. Now, what are some of the thoughts to lead to that thought? What are the emotional responses to that? My upbringing is not the worst upbringing. My parents did really, really well for us. They sheltered us as much as they could, and they brought us to a country which has lots of opportunities. But there are worse stories out there. I remember in my teens, when I started going to school and I started learning about the world, I thought Yugoslavia was the worst story in history. I remember hearing all the mess. I remember seeing the tanks line up and go through the streets of our hometowns. I remember the bombs falling everywhere. I remember I was going to shelters. I remember all of these things as a kid, right? I remember the massive lineup from Croatia into Serbia across the border of these refugees. You know, lots of Serbian people living in Croatia. Why are they all leaving? You know, I saw this with my own eyes without an understanding why this was happening. Who are these bad people who are chasing us? Why are we bad people? Why do they want to kill us? And then I, started learning more and more about my history, where I've come from in my teens. And then I realized that Yugoslavia was not the worst story in the world. I learned about Vietnam. I learned about Korea. I learned about Somalia. I learned about so many different places in the world who have had absolute shocking periods of history. Shocking genocide, suffering, pain, displacement. Shocking everywhere I looked. And then I went back even further, looked at how Yugoslavia was formed, looked at World War II, looked at what led to World War II, looked at World War One. Why were Germans so angry? Why did Hitler do what he did? Where did all this anger come from? And then you kind of go back and you kind of pick up every domino and you read about each of these dominoes that fell, and you realize it's like a whole cascade of events. And then, you can go as far as you want. And then you start to see that this life, man, it's... If you have the opportunities to go to a gym and train, you are freaking rich. I think about these type of situations quite regularly. So when I wake up, I have nursing stories behind me of people who are suffering, kind of fresh stories. And then if I want to go dig deeper into my brain, I think about some real tragedies, the war stories, where I've come from, and all these images that I have as a kid. A lot of people ask me, what do you remember as a 4 or 5 year old kid, kind of, with all these things? And I don't know about psychology and brain chemistry and all of that sort of stuff, but I remember pictures. I don't remember movies in my brain. Like, there's no video, I guess, recordings in my brain. I remember pictures, definitely. I remember pictures. I remember how I felt. And most of all, I remember the sounds. The sounds of mortar fire, a mortar flying through the air, the sound that it makes, the ground shaking, the fridge rattling, the crying, the stress of people around me. I remember those type of things. So I'm telling you all these things to kind of understand, to make you kind of start to understand where some of these, I guess, extreme, if you will, extreme ideas come from. Extreme people usually have had extreme experiences. I recently watched a video about a guy who spent some time in the penitentiary system. I don't know how many years he spent in jail. And he talked about how people work out in prison and how many thousands of push-ups they do, how many thousands of squats they do, and all that sort of stuff. Now, if you don't have that exposure of people training like crazy in the gym, you would think that that's bullshit. You would think that there's no one does 1,000 freaking push-ups a day. No one does that. Like, why would you want to do that? That's impossible. Yet there are people doing it. So it's your exposures in life. It's your perspectives in life. We could be talking about the same damn car, right? Or the same building or the same tree. And if you're from a different perspective or from a different angle looking at the damn thing, you probably draw a different picture, a different color. You paint a different thing depending on the light bouncing off and whatnot. So, unfortunately, the eastern part of the world, I don't know if that's the correct thing to say, but a lot of these extreme programs in sports science have come from the Soviet world, the Eastern world, where life was different. Luxuries were different, or maybe not even available. What the Chinese do is different to what the people maybe in England and America do. It's just different experiences. I've spoken about NBA players, how they come up on the streets, and they're fighting for bread on the table. That's why they're playing basketball. They're not playing basketball to have fun. To have fun. They're playing this as a legit career opportunity. So this 10-year-old kid that's maybe 6'4", 6'5", is thinking to himself, I've got some height. I can pull my family out of poverty if I do this really hard. So it's like a fundamental mental shift at a very early age the approach changes for that 10-year-old who's thinking, I might be able to make better for my mom, so my mom doesn't have to work 3 jobs. We don't have to live in a basement. So that child that has that thought is going to rock up to training a bit differently. It's going to rock up to the games differently. He's going to have the same different hunger towards the same bowl that maybe a child who comes from a well background is just a different thing. And so when you're trying to assess what's possible, what's not possible, unfortunately, it's the extreme parts of that bell curve that we have to look for to see what's possible as a human organism. I've often said the mind is the biggest battle. If you can conquer your mind, the body will follow. If you think to yourself that squatting every day is a walk in the park, you might squat twice a day. Why is squatting every day such a hard life? Why would it be a hard life? Who has it harder? Me or somebody who does 3 jobs, works freaking 20 hours a day, 18 hours a day, every day to feed their kid? Who has it harder? Who? So my perspective to these things is, this is nothing. A lot of the times I think to myself, I'm not working hard enough. But there are people working harder. Simple as that. There are people who are just getting after it more. But because they have to. See the difference? I don't have to do this. I can squat 3 times a week. I can do whatever the hell I want to do. I have got the luxury of choice. But if you don't have the choice and you start doing these extreme things, then you're like, geez, I never thought this was possible until I was forced to do this. The reason why I'm telling you all of this is one word: perspective. It's all about perspective. This is why knowledge is power. This is why reading about different forms of life on this planet is so valuable. This is why, your sad day might feel a little bit better when you realize that you're sad today for whatever reason, and we're all out to be sad, but you just had a triple-decker sandwich with a full glass of milk, and you're sitting in a perfectly air-conditioned room at 22 degrees, 21 degrees, and you're watching on a big fat screen Lebron James score 39 points the other day. You're sad. That's cool. You can be sad. But never forget what you have. Never forget the luxuries that you have and how fortunate you are. There are people in this world who don't have the glass of milk, the sandwich, the fat screen, or the air conditioner. There are people who don't even know who LeBron James is. If you know who LeBron James is, you're doing better than the guy who doesn't. Because the guy who doesn't is probably too busy trying to feed his family. So it's all about perspective. It's all about your understanding. I always use this term in my cascade of thinking. Just zoom the hell out, man. And when I zoom out and I picture some of the upbringing moments that I've had, picture some of the hardships that we've had as a family, man, I am living an incredible life. Incredible life. And I don't know, this is probably not a normal thing. And I know human nature is always about trying to get better. Try to get better. Let's get a better house, a better car, a better promotion, more money than last year. Let's keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. And that's all well and good. That's all well and good. But you need to look back. Like in yesterday's video, I said, you need to look down from that mountain. You might be halfway up. Look down and see how far you've come. Look down and see what other people are having to deal with. That's kind of how I think about some of these things. And this is what I want to tell people when they approach me with some of these specific questions about, man, you're a hard ass or whatever, incredible dedication or whatever. I hear you and I understand what I'm doing is not normal. But at the same time, if you kind of go into my mind and see what I'm comparing my efforts to in life, I'm nothing, man. I'm nothing. Even if you look at the sporting world, if you just isolate the sporting world, I'm not doing anything spectacular. Think about the Navy SEALs, what they do. Think about some of these extreme athletes, what they do. And so it's almost like I don't know. I don't know if this is the correct thing to say, but I almost feel like it's an embarrassing feeling to me when somebody gives me all this praise where I don't feel that I'm anything special. Enough of the black screen, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.